Nintendo Switch 2 Edition games are weird. If you didn't watch the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, Nintendo, alongside announcing new games, also announced Nintendo Switch 2 Edition games. In Nintendo's words, this is a third type of game for the Nintendo Switch 2. So on the Switch 2, you can play Nintendo Switch 2 games, which are obviously Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive games that are not on Switch 1. You can play Nintendo Switch 1 games that are backwards compatible on Nintendo Switch 2. And then the third one is, of course, Nintendo Switch 2 Edition games. Basically, these are enhanced versions of select Nintendo Switch games, and they add a little bit of content as well as make the experience for the user a lot better. If I'm not mistaken, there's also this thing called like Nintendo Switch 2 Enhanced games, which aren't Nintendo Switch 2 Edition games. These are just kind of basically Nintendo Switch 1 games that are at a better resolution, better frame rate, that aren't paid as far as we know. I just wanted to kind of address that as well, where we have Nintendo Switch Enhanced games for Switch 2, where it's like games like Super Mario 3D World. I think Pokemon Scarlet Violet is on there as well. Those games have better frame rates and better performance for the Switch 2, whereas what we're talking about today, Nintendo Switch 2 games or Nintendo Switch 2 Edition games, are paid upgrades basically. So I kind of wanted to go over what we know about these so far and talk about, are they a good thing? Are they a bad thing? Or are they in between? Firstly, let's talk about the games that we have so far. So far, the games that we know that are getting Nintendo Switch 2 Edition games are The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Super Mario Party Jamboree, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, Pokemon Legends ZA, and Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Now, when it comes to the new content in these games, it's kind of all across the board on how much content each game gets. I'm going to go over what Nintendo has on their official website for these new upgrade details and what we'll be getting in these Switch 2 Edition games. And let's start out with The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild Nintendo Switch 2 Edition. According to Nintendo's website, this upgraded version of Breath of the Wild will have support for Zelda Notes, which is in the Nintendo Switch app, which was previously the Nintendo Switch Online app. You'll also have improved frame rates and resolution. There will also be faster load times. So basically, there's no new content in this game, which is kind of expected outside of the compatibility with the Nintendo Switch app with Zelda Notes. And the same thing goes for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. As already mentioned, on top of the improved frame rates and resolution and faster load times, we once again have support for Zelda Notes on the Nintendo Switch app. So yes, no new content there outside of the mobile app functionality. Our next one though, Super Mario Party Jamboree, actually has some new content because in the Nintendo Switch 2 Edition, you have Jamboree TV. And this includes new modes that use the mouse controls, microphone, and compatible USB-C cameras in the Bowser TV mode, I think is what it was called. And players can appear in-game via the camera play using compatible USB-C cameras. Basically, through Super Mario Party Jamboree Nintendo Switch 2 Edition plus Jamboree TV, I know, that's a mouthful, you'll be able to basically appear in the game with the camera. I guess it's kind of like a combination of motion controls and the Kinect from the Xbox 360, which is kind of funny. Next up, we have another game with new content with Kirby and the Forgotten Land. As in this version of the game, on top of being visually enhanced and having an improved frame rate, there's a new story in Story Cross World. We don't really know much about this. This is essentially DLC, kind of like how Jamboree TV was for Super Mario Party Jamboree Switch 2 Edition. But what we do know is that this is essentially DLC that takes place after the events of Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and it might reuse levels, it might be new levels, we don't know for sure. It kind of looks like that it's like revamped levels for this DLC, but at the same time, it could just be the same themes with different level designs. But this is the only other Nintendo Switch 2 Edition so far that we know of that has new content. Next up, we got Pokemon Legends ZA, and this one is the most disappointing, I think, where it has improved performance with a higher frame rate and resolution. So basically, it just looks and runs better than the Switch 1 Edition, which, I mean, that's all we really need for this game, but we don't have any exclusive content here, at least yet, because the game's not out yet, so we don't know for sure if there will be some Switch 2 exclusive content for this game. But like, this is basically nothing. It's basically just Pokemon Legends ZA running better because it's on Switch 2 hardware. And of course, the last one is Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. This one is honestly probably the most exciting to me because not only is it a game that we haven't gotten yet, but it supports the mouse controls for the Joy-Con 2 controller. And like, just based on the Treehouse gameplay we saw, this looks like it's gonna work really good. It also has enhanced resolutions, textures, and load times, as you could come to expect. And there's also two different display modes. You can play with 4K 60 FPS on TV in quality mode, but there's there's also performance mode where you can play in 1080p with 120 frames per second. That's insane. This game is going to be great. You can either have it like look really good and also run pretty well, or you can have it run really well but also still look pretty good. And like this is something that like we haven't seen Nintendo ever do, so this is kind of exciting. But what's not exciting is the prices. Prices for Nintendo Switch 2 Edition games have kind of, for the most part, been showing off, at least for the games that are coming out or that are already out. We don't know the prices of Pokemon Legends ZA or Metroid Prime 4 Nintendo Switch 2 editions, but we do know for the other 4 games, or 3 games, yeah, 4 games. So let's address the elephants in the room. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Switch 2 editions are $10 more than their Nintendo Switch counterpart. It's like, okay, yeah, it's just $10, whatever. It's not like a huge deal, but at the same time, there's no new content in them outside of the mobile app and stuff. So like, you're basically just paying $10 extra just for these to run better, where there's also games on the Nintendo Switch that will have enhanced versions for Switch 2 that you don't have to pay extra for. It could be that like these ones are natively 4K or natively running at a better frame rate, whereas the other ones, it's like enhancement through DLSS or whatever. I'm not a specs guy. I couldn't tell you like the exact specifications on why these games may run better than, or like may run natively better, whereas the other ones run better, but like it's not native. It's a whole thing. I don't know how Switch 2 enhanced games work. We don't know much about that yet. But just the fact that these cost more, where they're just seemingly enhanced versions of these games, is kind of like, why? I get that The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are like some of the greatest games Nintendo's ever produced. So obviously I'm gonna pick these up because I want to be able to play these games in 4K at a stable frame rate and like just better quality. But like at the same time, it's just like, I don't see why they would charge extra for these, but it's whatever. But moving on to the other two, Kirby and the Forgotten Land and Mario Party Jamboree, or sorry, Super Mario Party Jamboree. These ones have additional content and they cost $20 more than their base games, which is like, okay, yeah, they have extra content, but at the same time, it's like, how much content is truly in there? Because based on what we saw for Super Mario Party Jamboree, it looks cool. Like the new side modes are cool, but there's no new boards. There's a couple new mini games that use the mouse and the like microphone and the camera, but outside of those things, we don't really have anything new in Super Mario Party Jamboree. It's Mario Party Jamboree with better graphics, which again, we have with enhanced visuals on other Nintendo Switch games, and just a couple side modes, and it's $20 more. I don't think a couple side modes are worth $20, but that could just be me. I love Mario Party Jamboree. It's a top 10, top 15 Nintendo Switch game for me, but I just think it's weird that this, I guess essentially DLC is $20, and it just doesn't seem to be bringing much. Obviously, we have to wait to see what it fully brings when this comes out, but I don't know. I'm just kind of skeptical about this. Kirby and the Forgotten Land also is $20 more, as I've already mentioned, and it has the additional story with the star-crossed world, and I think that this could be more worth your money depending on how big of a DLC or expansion this essentially is. Again, we don't really know how big these DLCs or expansions necessarily are. Maybe they'll blow us all away, and these will be worth that extra $20, but I just kind of have a hard time thinking that, yeah, these are going to be worth that much extra money, because that's $80. Well, I guess if you had the games already, $20 for upgraded visuals and for some extra content. The last thing I do want to talk about in this video is about what exactly will be included in these Switch 2 Edition games. Because it's like, are we going to get like new cartridges, like with the Switch 2 Edition enhancements on them? Or is it going to be like the Switch 1 cartridge with like a download code with the Switch 2 enhancements, where it's essentially like you're kind of buying a DLC, but it's for enhancements for the Switch 2 Edition. Basically, what we're seeing is that these are going to be the Switch 1 cartridge with the Switch 2 Editions packaged in with them. So basically, it's going to be like getting the game on Switch 1, but like it also includes a DLC code. That's kind of the best way I could put it, because that's kind of what it seems like. So you're gonna get the Switch 1 cartridge. Maybe there'll be like a Switch 2 logo on there, but I doubt it. I'm gonna guess that like when it comes to this, you'll be able to use this cartridge on a Switch 1, but obviously the enhanced version won't be available on Switch 1. So like when you're playing this game, if you had the Switch 2 Edition, if you bought the Switch 2 Edition, you'll have those enhancements, you'll have whatever's included in those when you're playing on Switch 2, but when you're playing on the Switch 1 or just playing on a normal Switch, you'll be able to play these versions of the games. Even though you bought the Switch 2 edition, you'll still be able to play them on Switch 1 just without the enhancements, because it will be a Switch 1 cartridge. I'm gonna guess this is how it works. I could be completely wrong, and if I am, please leave a comment. Let me know what I got wrong, what I got right, and just, I guess, what you think about this all, because Switch 2 edition games are kind of a weird thing. I see why Nintendo is doing them, where it's like, yeah, you get some extra content with these upgraded versions of these Nintendo Switch games, but on the other hand, the content in, like, especially the Zelda games that are getting these Switch 2 enhancements, or these Switch 2 editions, they're just getting some mobile app stuff, and it's just like, I don't think it's necessarily worth paying $10 for some mobile app stuff. But hey, that's just my opinion at the end of the day. Again, let me know what you think down in the comments, and that's all I really have for this one. But if you want to see another video by me, there's a video on screen now where I go over what's happening with 3D Mario, and I think you'll enjoy it. With that being said, I'm the biggest nub on YouTube, Christendo, signing off, and as always, goodbye, Nub Nation.